Getaway and the south of France, an area so picturesque and dreamy that it's like floating through a movie set. Together, we're going to explore this region that reads like a fancy wine list and delight in all that it has to offer. So settle back and enjoy.
Over the next 3 weeks, we'll journey with Scenic through the Burgundy wine region, right down into Provence and finishing up in the former Roman city of Arles. But before we take our place on the luxurious Scenic Emerald, we have the afternoon free to explore the lovely city of Dijon.
I know what you're thinking, Dijon, mustard, but there is a lot more than that to this beautiful little town, which is often referred to as Paris's little sister. It has its own mini Versailles, its own mini Notre Dame. It's a lot cheaper than Paris, and you won't have to fight the crowds. My guide, Jonquil Cook, says Dijon's likeness to Paris is all to do with its original design.
It was Louis XIV, the Sun King, who had created this fabulous Paris palace, Versailles, and he'd used this architect called Mansart, and Mansart was famous for designing this two-tiered roof that you see all over Paris. And if you look up here, you've got the perfect influence of Mansart's architectural style, where they redeveloped the palaces of the Dukes of Burgundy to become a kind of secondary royal residence for the king.
So he bought the same architect from Paris who designed Versailles to Dijon to do exactly the same.
Exactly, to make a mini Paris right here in Burgundy.
With less people.
Yeah, and more mustard and better wine.
Dijon's architecture reflects its centuries of history and its many influences.
You've got buildings dating back to the 13th century, you've got buildings like this from the 15th century, and then you've got all those grand palaces that Louis XIV had established here in the 17th century. So it's a really, really beautiful city if you love buildings.
And no trip here is complete without a visit to the local icon, a symbol of good luck for people around the world.
So this is the owl.
Yeah, this is the little owl. This is the mascot of Dijon. You notice people all touching it with their left hand. That's right.
Why
the
your
left hand? Because you've got the direct line to your heart, and it brings you good luck. And people have been rubbing that little owl since the middle of the 13th century, which is
why he doesn't look like an owl.
Which is why he has no beak.
I feel lucky.
Yeah, good, you should.
If you could take my pulse right now, it would feel just like a safe heaven.
From here, our cruise begins as we take off on the scenic spaceship in Salon and journey down the River Rhône.
For all of you, to a cruise, a memorable cruise on board the Scenic Emerald here with us, and to all the memories you're going to take away with you. Ladies and gentlemen, as we say in France, santé.
There's a perception with ships and cruising of cramped cabins, but not with Scenic. You have plenty of space to spread out. So all you have to do is unpack once in your full-sized wardrobe, pop the suitcase underneath the bed and relax. Oh, and did I mention that you have your own private butler? Bonjour, NRK. Merci beaucoup. Au revoir.
To top it off, over 80% of rooms have these full-sized balconies. With plenty of space to spread out, all that's left to do is settle in, relax and enjoy the journey. We're on this 5-star floating hotel for the next 12 nights, and every day it guides us into a new little town that has given us world-famous wine and produce. And in between, we get to look into the backyards of the French locals. Oh, come on, everybody loves a sticky beak. My fellow guests, many of them Australians, are just as excited as me for the journey that we are embarking on.
It is a very easy way to travel. It's delightful, you meet new people. We have been on other scenic cruises, but we haven't done this river.
They just make you feel special, and the attention that they give to you, and the extra care of the butlers coming in and helping you, and just everything's at your beckoning call. And you just feel like you're a princess, really, in a castle.
Our scenic cruise through the south of France is underway, and we are doing it in luxury on board the Scenic Emerald.
One of my favourite parts about this scenic tours cruise is that every day you get to discover a gorgeous little French village. And this gorgeous little French village is called Beaune. It's the wine capital of Burgundy, and here they love making it, tasting it, selling it, and, am I right, lads, drinking it!
Its gentle sloping vineyards, limestone-rich soils and sunny exposure combine to produce a couple of the top drops on the planet.
So you're enjoying a little Pinot?
Yes, this happens to be the village for the finest Pinot Noir in the world, and this whole region, for over 800 years, they've produced the wine that's achieved the highest price in the world.
There's wine caves and cellars all through the town, and as part of the scenic free choice tours, you can explore them at your leisure. Being from this region, my guide Jonquil is quite the wine expert.
So what makes these Burgundy wines so exclusive?
Well, all of the main wine growing area in Burgundy is on limestone, and limestone is this very kind of sedimentary rock with lots of cracks and fissures in it, so the roots can penetrate to get down to the water table. Meanwhile, you've got the grapes up on top on the hillside, catching the first rays of the morning sun in the east and drying very, very quickly, which makes them get big and fat and juicy.
But the town of Beaune isn't famous for its wines alone. One of the town's most historic and sacred buildings is the Hospice de Beaune. It was built in the 15th century and functioned as a hospital up until the 1970s, and is now preserved as a museum for tourists.
And it was a hospital that was designed uniquely to accommodate the poorest members of the community. So the poor in Beaune, of which there were many, because there had been terrible wars raging between France and Burgundy.
Being just a short drive from Dijon, Beaune is also home to a famous moutarderie, or mustard factory. Guide Caroline Riberteau will run you through the long history of mustard in this region and even show you how to make your own from scratch.
It's not as creamy as your mustards though.
It's gonna be in a few minutes.
Bit more elbow grease.
Yeah.
So why is Burgundy so famous for its mustard?
Because we had a lot of mustard manufacturers in Dijon, and we had this special recipe. We were always working with winemakers, but you had also this verjus. Mustard with verjus is very good, very famous.
Oh, stop it, my mouth's watering.
But if you want the real deal, without the hard labour, the shop on site has every flavour of mustard you could imagine.
I never knew there were so many different types of mustard.
Yes. Our classical Burgundy mustard, but then blackcurrant, basil, walnut, gingerbread, honey and balsamic, one of my favourite.
So I'm imagining a little baguette, some chambon, and a little bit of the classic Burgundy
Exactly.
mustard.
This is a mustard made with wine aligoté.
Now I just need the other ingredients. But that is beautiful.
After exploring Beaune, we have the afternoon free to soak up the passing scenery back on the scenic Emerald. You'll never want for anything on board. All meals and drinks are included. And in between the decadent main meals, the River Cafe is open all day long.
Bonjour Stéphane.
Bonjour, mademoiselle.
Un café au clair, s'il vous plaît.
Un éclair. Oui, mademoiselle.
Where have you been all my life? Generally, the ship docks right in the heart of these quaint little towns, which gives you the chance to do some exploring in your own time. Now, this is an electric bike, so it's not going to work off any of the vanilla eclairs that I just ate. Oh well, c'est la vie.
We've docked in Tournou, an easy village to cycle around as most of its main sites are centred in the compact old town area. This freedom to explore at leisure gives guests the chance to spend their holiday exactly as they wish.
Bonjour. Ça va bien, merci, et toi?
Bien, bien.
Bien.
The good thing about the whole cruise is that you can do as much as you like, or you can sit back and just enjoy the trip as it comes.
We're on the first stretch of our scenic cruise in the south of France, and the sights as we meander down the River Rhône are simply superb. You're guaranteed to see a few castles along the way, but Cormatan Castle near Cluny is a real standout. It's certainly not the biggest you'll see, but it is one of the most beautiful. And it's one of the best examples of 17th century architecture that you will find in this part of France.
So this castle is really the centre point for this town, isn't it?
Yes, this is the castle that was established here in 1600 because the man that owned all this land, who was a military man, he was the governor of Salon, he decided to build a great grand castle that was kind of a reflection of his status and culture.
This castle is still privately owned, having been bought by 3 friends in the 1980s and lovingly restored.
The 3 owners of Courmatin really just wanted to have a museum and a home, because they live here as well. But they wanted to be able to show people really what life was like at the beginning of the 17th century, and they've done that by producing these incredible landscape gardens which follow very closely the original designs of what would have been here.
It's open to us visitors to explore at our leisure and, of course, to dream what life would have been like all those centuries ago.
This is beautiful.
It's stunning, and it's the oldest staircase of its kind in a castle in Europe. It's called an open well staircase, and it was really designed to be seen on, to sort of display your grandeur, so you can imagine yourself sweeping up here in your big skirts.
Now I wish I had a big skirt on.
Welcome to the Salon of the Belle Poque. And this is a room that the owners have really set up to kind of reflect and show us what life would have been like at the turn of the 19th and 20th century. So in 1897, it was the director of the Monte Carlo Opera who bought the castle and turned it into a sort of grand location for entertaining and fabulous parties.
Back on board, and we're just in time for cocktail hour as we cruise further down the Rhône to our next spectacular stop.
One of the marvels of this tour, for me at least, is the fact that you're walking through the antiquity of civilization, and the buildings and the scenery is just magnificent.
And with Scenic, every day is different, so wherever the ship docks, there's a choice of different tours that you can head out on. Today, I've chosen Bresse and its farm museum for a total change of scenery.
Well, this is an interesting building.
Yeah, so this is really representing the exact opposite of all the buildings we've been looking at for the last few days, all the chateaux, of the homes of the nobles of Burgundy.
Showing off.
Exactly. This is how real people live. This is kind of your farmers, your peasant stock, and they lived in these beautiful, beautiful farms in the Middle Ages, and really typical of this part of Burgundy.
The farm itself dates back to the early 17th century.
Is there anyone living on this farm?
There were people living here, and this was a working farm right up until about 1983. And then for a little while, the owners of the farm remained, they kind of stayed on in retirement. And in the early 90s, they developed it as a museum because the buildings were so perfectly preserved.
It represents all aspects of early life in Bresse, not only its architecture, but its agriculture. With enough produce to feed the family, a small vineyard to ensure they had enough wine, and of course, the world-renowned Bresse chickens.
So, Jonquil, all the top chefs rave about Bresse chicken. What makes it so good?
Well, because of the way that Bresse chicken are raised, in order to be called a poulet de Bresse, each chicken has to have 10 square metres of space, outdoor, grassy space. And also, one of the things they do, one of the tricks of producing perfect poulet de Bresse is that they're fed corn and powdered milk in the last 2 weeks of their short lives.
Now, you can't get more French than the Bresse chicken because they've got the red, the white body and the blue legs.
Exactly. They represent everything that's important about France in terms of liberté, égalité and fraternité.
And gastronomie.
And gastronomie.
Welcome back to our scenic cruise through the south of France. along the Rhone River and into some of the country's most delightful towns and cities.
We've arrived in France's second largest city, Lyon. It's a visually stunning part of the world with a history that dates back some 2,000 years. It all comes to life when you hear the stories about the Renaissance, the French Revolution, the Romans, and I've got all that information right here in my trusty little guide.
These tailor-made devices are designed for those days when you'd like to go at your own pace. It's basically a guide in your pocket, and we'll talk you through the points of interest at the many stops along the river.
The people and scenes on the walls come alive to give a magical feel to buildings, neighbourhoods and city districts.
But of course, if you'd prefer a real-life guide, Scenic have those on hand too. All as friendly and passionately local as Magali Clemencon.
So Magali, tell me about this Roman theatre.
Yes, we're located here in the archaeological site, and we highlighted this Roman theatre about 100 years ago. We didn't know what we were about to highlight when they started the excavation here, and they finally highlighted that theatre where there were about 10,000 people who could have a seat and come here for different plays.
This centuries-old Roman amphitheatre is testament to this city's incredible history and is among the oldest ruins unearthed in France.
So is it still used today for concerts?
Yes, we have a fantastic summer festival in July and August for 2 months. We have singers coming, but operas organised, plays also, and international singers. Elton John was here, for example.
Really? Elton John was here?
Lyon is a lively city and despite its size, is quite compact and easy to get around. Its central heart is Belle Square.
So this is where the people of Lyon come to meet?
Exactly, that's the heart of Lyon. And we are used to give the appointment exactly under the horse tail.
I'll meet you under the horse's tail.
Exactly.
But of course, what Lyon is best known for is food. Glorious food. With chocolatiers and patisseries on nearly every corner and world-renowned chefs, it's little wonder Lyon is one of the top culinary destinations in the world.
So who decides that Lyon is the gastronomic capital of France?
We had a culinary critic in 1911 named Kurnowski, and he was very renowned, and he gave the title of capital of gastronomy.
So he ate his way around France and decided that Lyon was the best.
Exactly.
What a gig is that?
With all these renowned chefs in the city, cooking classes are another popular pastime. And that's the scenic free choice I've picked today, to eat some yummy French treats, if nothing else.
When the caramel is okay, the smell is something like smoked smell. It's beginning to burn your eyes, and when it's like that, it's really good. If you do it like that, without the taste of the smoke, you don't have the taste of the caramel, you only have the taste of the sugar.
Brie Conan-Ferrand is teaching us the basics of French pastries.
When it's like that, it's good job.
Happy?
When it's like that...
It's really all you know that, don't you?
You can have that.
And it turns out he's quite a tough taskmaster.
No.
What?
Okay, yeah. I'm doing it, I'm showing. Okay, you do it well, you do it well. Press.
Press.
You press with this hand.
I did, you're right. It's bad. Right. When you were training, did the chef get angry?
Yeah, the chef get angry. If you do that, the chef get angry.
Yeah.
What are you doing? No. Stop press. Like machine. Imagine a machine. The machine doing its job. Wait a minute. Okay. Like that. Beep. Beep.
Joking. It's hard.
You move. You are moving all the time.
Being able to make a tarte de tatin from scratch is a big win in the holiday bragging stakes.
All right, so we have finished, but I can promise you there is no way that these two puppies are going to make it back to the ship alive. Have I got something on my face? The people, the landscape and the lifestyle here in the south of France has a certain charm to it that's really infectious. They certainly know how to capture the joie de vivre, or the joy of living. Join us next week as we soak up more of this sublime culture when our scenic tours journey continues down the Rhone.